Your nephew starts Monday, and you'll train him for your position. Consider this your 2 weeks' notice." My boss, Richard Thornton, slid the termination papers across his mahogany desk with the same casual indifference he used to sign supplier invoices. The question wasn't whether I'd train my 19-year-old replacement. It was whether Richard would still have a company to nepotize 6 months later. My name is Diana Morrison, and I'd spent 7 years building Thornton Manufacturing's entire quality control system from scratch. 7 years of 60-hour weeks, missed holidays, and turning Richard's chaotic metal fabrication shop into a precision operation that landed contracts with aerospace giants. My reward? Being replaced by a kid who couldn't tell a caliper from a calculator. "You're seriously firing me to give my job to Tyler?" I kept my voice level, though my hands clenched beneath the desk. Richard leaned back in his leather chair, the one I'd helped him pick when we'd finally moved out of the warehouse office. "He's family, Diana. He needs to learn the business, and you're the best teacher. He failed out of community college. Twice. Everyone deserves chances." Richard's face hardened. "Family first. You'll understand when you have kids." I stared at the termination papers. 2 weeks to train someone for a position that had taken me years to master. 2 weeks to hand over every system, every client relationship, every piece of institutional knowledge that kept this place running. "And if I refuse? Then you leave today. No severance, no recommendation." He shrugged. "Your choice." I thought about the mortgage on my condo, the car payment, the reality of job hunting in a specialized field. Then I thought about Tyler, the same kid who'd crashed the company truck last summer during his internship, who'd shown up drunk to the company picnic, who'd spent his previous stint here playing video games in the break room. "I'll need my full severance package," I said finally. 6 months, as per my contract. 2 months. Take it or leave it. My contract states. Contracts can be interpreted many ways. Richard's smile was shark-like. My lawyer golf buddy tells me subordination could be grounds for immediate termination with cause. Insubordination. For refusing to train my replacement. I almost laughed at the irony. Fine. 2 months severance. But I want it in writing, signed today. Smart girl. He buzzed his assistant. "Martha, bring in the severance agreement for Diana." Smart girl. I'd redesigned his entire quality system, saved him from 3 lawsuits, and increased efficiency by 35%. But I was still just a smart girl to him. Tyler slouched in on Monday wearing ripped jeans and a gaming t-shirt. He didn't shake my hand, just nodded and pulled out his phone. "So, when do I get my own office?" he asked, scrolling through Instagram. "Let's start with understanding what quality control means," I said, pulling up our documentation system. "Isn't it just checking if stuff's broken?" I spent 8 hours that first day trying to explain basic concepts while Tyler played phone games. When I showed him our client communication protocols, he yawned. When I demonstrated the testing equipment, he made TikToks. When I explained the FDA regulations we had to follow for medical device components, he asked if we could just skip the boring parts. "These aren't boring parts," I said, patience fraying. "These are federal requirements. Violations mean millions in fines." "Chill, Diane." "Diana." "Whatever. Uncle Rick says you worry too much about rules." By Wednesday, I'd given up trying to actually teach him. Instead, I documented everything, every process, every password, every client quirk, in meticulous detail. Not for Tyler, who hadn't retained a single thing I'd taught him, but for whoever would eventually need to fix his disasters. "Why are you typing so much?" Tyler asked, feet up on my desk for 3 more days. "Creating documentation. Seems like a waste. I'll just figure it out as I go." He spun in my chair. "Uncle Rick says I'm a natural leader." That afternoon, Richard called me in. "Tyler says you're being difficult." "I'm trying to train him. He won't pay attention. He's young. Make it more engaging. Use videos or something." Richard waved dismissively. "Kids these days learn differently." "Richard, he doesn't know the difference between stainless steel grades. That's literally fundamental to our. He'll learn on the job. You're overthinking this." I bit back 20 responses and returned to my office, Tyler's office now, where he was using my computer to shop for gaming chairs. "Hey, Donna." "Diana." "Right. How do I get a company credit card? This chair is like $2,000, but it's ergonomic." Thursday brought a visit from our biggest client, Aerospace Dynamics. I'd carefully cultivated that relationship for 5 years, earning their trust through consistent quality and honest communication. Their lead engineer, Sarah Chun, pulled me aside during the facility tour. "Diana, we heard you're leaving. Please tell me you're not going far." I glanced at Tyler, who was showing Sarah's colleague a meme on his phone. "I'm being replaced. Meet Tyler Thornton, your new quality control manager." Sarah's face went carefully neutral. "I see. And he's been in quality control for how long?" "This is his 4th day." "4th day in this position?" "4th day in quality control. Ever." Sarah excused herself to make a phone call. I didn't blame her. My last day arrived with no fanfare. Tyler showed up at noon, complaining about traffic. I handed him 3 binders of documentation, passwords to 37 different systems, and a flowchart I'd stayed up all night creating. "Cool, thanks." He tossed them on a shelf without looking. "So do I get a raise when I take over?" "That's between you and your uncle." "Sweet. He already promised me your salary plus 20%. Tyler grinned. "Family perks, you know?" "I knew." "Oh, I knew." I packed my personal items while Tyler live-streamed himself becoming a boss. As I carried my box to the door, Richard appeared. "Diana, I hope there are no hard feelings. Business is business." "Of course," I lied smoothly. "I'm sure Tyler will do great things." Richard's chest puffed with pride. "He's a Thornton. Success is in our blood." I thought about the inspection reports I'd falsified under Richard's orders 3 years ago, the ones I'd quietly corrected and documented. The safety violations he'd told me to ignore that I'd fixed anyway. The corners he cut that I'd meticulously uncut to keep us compliant. "Absolutely," I said. "He's definitely a Thornton." I was in my car when my phone buzzed. "Sarah Chun, can we talk?" "Privately." We met at a coffee shop an hour later. Sarah didn't waste time on pleasantries. "How bad is it going to get?" "Honestly? I give it 3 months before you have major quality issues. 6 before there's a recall." "Jesus." Sarah rubbed her temples. "We've got $100 million in contracts with Thornton." I documented everything I could, but Tyler won't read it. Tyler can't read a ruler, much less technical documentation. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You know, we've been thinking about bringing quality control in-house. Building our own team. Interested?" My heart jumped, but I kept my voice steady. "I have a non-compete clause. For direct competitors. We're not a manufacturer, we're aerospace. Different industry classification." Sarah smiled. "I checked with legal before coming here. When would you need someone?" "Yesterday. But officially? Monday works." I started at Aerospace Dynamics the next week, hired to build their internal quality system. The salary was 40% higher than Thornton's, with actual benefits and a team that respected expertise over nepotism. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Thornton manufacturing through industry contacts. The decline was swift and spectacular. Week 2, Tyler approved a shipment of parts with the wrong alloy composition. The client caught it barely. Week 4, he signed off on components that were 10% out of tolerance because close enough, right? Week 6, he lost the calibration certificates for half the testing equipment because he'd thrown out old paperwork to make room for his gaming setup. Week 8, FDA auditors arrived for a surprise inspection. Tyler tried to charm them with his natural leadership. They were not charmed. Week 10, 3 major clients pulled their contracts. Week 12, the recall notices started. By month 4, Thornton Manufacturing was hemorrhaging money. Richard fired Tyler. Family First had its limits, apparently, but the damage was done. He hired consultants, begged former clients to return, even called me asking if I'd consider coming back, at a senior level, with equity. "I'm happy where I am," I told him. "But I wish you the best." He hung up on me. Month 5 brought lawsuits. Turns out when you ship faulty components for medical devices, lawyers get involved. The consultants Richard hired discovered years of cut corners, ignored regulations, and falsified reports. Everything I'd quietly fixed without documentation of his orders. Month 6, bankruptcy filing. I heard through the grapevine that Richard blamed everyone but himself. The economy, unfair regulations, disloyal employees, vindictive clients. Never his decision to replace expertise with nepotism. The bankruptcy auction notice appeared in my inbox on a Tuesday. Among the assets, the building that housed Thornton Manufacturing. The same building where I'd spent 7 years building something from nothing, only to be discarded for a teenager who couldn't spell calibration. I toured the building the day before auction. It was ghostly empty, machines sold off, offices stripped bare. My old office, Tyler's brief office. Still had the gaming chair he'd bought with the company credit card. The auction itself was sparsely attended. The economy was shaky, industrial real estate wasn't hot, and the building needed work. I waited, watched, and when the moment came, I bid. Sold to Diana Morrison for $450,000. Less than half what Richard had paid 10 years ago. Market conditions, the auctioneer explained apologetically. That, and the hazmat cleanup required from Tyler's brief tenure of dumping calibration fluids down storm drains. I signed the papers with the same pen I'd used to sign my termination agreement. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 weeks later, I stood in the empty building with Sarah Chun and my new team from Aerospace Dynamics. We were expanding, needed manufacturing space, and I knew every inch of this facility. It's perfect, Sarah said. We can set up clean rooms here, testing labs there. Build it right from the ground up. With proper quality control, I added. Obviously. That's why we hired you. As my team mapped out the space, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized Richard's voice immediately. Diana, I heard you bought the building. News travels. That building means everything to me. My father built that company. And you destroyed it. Silence. Then, I'll buy it back. Name your price. It's not for sale. Everything's for sale. Don't be vindictive. Vindictive. He'd fired me for refusing to enable his nepotism, and I was vindictive. Richard, you taught me something valuable. You said family first, right? Yes, exactly. Well, this is my work family now. People who value competence over connections. And we're going to build something amazing here. Without you. You can't. Actually, I can. I own the building. Goodbye, Richard. I hung up and looked around the space, my space now. In 6 months, we'd transform it into a state-of-the-art facility. We'd hire locally, pay fairly, and never, ever, put nepotism over knowledge. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Tyler. Uncle Rick said you bought the building. Can I get my gaming chair back? I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Then I typed back. No. Some things weren't worth salvaging. But others, like this building, like careers built on merit, like companies that valued expertise, those were worth rebuilding from the foundation up. The next morning, I arrived early to find Richard standing outside the locked gates, looking older than I remembered. He wasn't angry anymore, just defeated. I taught you everything, he said quietly. Made you who you are. No, I corrected. You taught me what not to do. I made myself who I am. He stared at the building that had been his legacy. Tyler really screwed up, didn't he? Tyler was 19 with no experience. You screwed up when you put him in a position he couldn't handle. Family. Family means preparing them for success, not handing them responsibilities they can't manage. I unlocked the gate. Tyler might have made a decent quality technician with proper training. In 5 years, maybe a supervisor. In 10, possibly a manager. But you wanted to skip the work. Richard's shoulders sagged. I wanted to give him what I never had. You gave him failure. And you gave up someone who actually knew how to run your business for someone who shared your DNA. He looked at me then, really looked, maybe for the first time. I'm sorry. 2 words, 6 months too late. I know, I said. Good luck, Richard. I drove through the gates of my building, and watched in the rearview mirror as Richard stood on the sidewalk, staring at what he'd lost. Inside, contractors were already working. The gaming chair was gone, donated to a youth center. The old office layouts were being demolished, replaced with open, collaborative spaces. Every trace of Thornton manufacturing was being erased, replaced with something better. My phone rang. Sarah Chun. Morning, boss. Ready to build something amazing. I looked around at the possibilities surrounding me, at the future we were creating on the bones of someone else's nepotistic mistakes. Absolutely, I said. Let's get to work.